Hey guys, fight commentary breakdowns here. I mean, you guys recognize him, Mr. Ken Shamrock, man, UFC legend, WWF or WWE legend, and now he has a bare knuckle boxing league. So I wanted to bring him on to talk about this. What's up, Ken?
Hey, thanks for having me on, and we're excited about the new league.
Absolutely. And before we begin, I just want to say, guys, Ken is such an inspiration. I've had neck injuries too, and Ken's overcome them. So I was watching some of the stuff from there, and it just inspired me so much. So that was another reason that I had to bring Ken on the channel. So Ken, man, you're an inspiration.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Ken, let's get started with this bare knuckle league. So let's just get into it. What made you come up with the idea of Valor Bare Knuckle?
Well, back in the day when I first started out, it was anything goes. I mean, it was literally the Wild Wild West. It was like you had different styles, people coming in with different techniques, and it was supposed to be no rules, but of course, they took shoes away and did other things. But basically, it literally was no rules. And guys from different styles. And it's something that I fell in love with once I started grasping the idea of what no rules really meant. And we started getting into that framework of understanding what it is that we could or could not do. And I fell in love with that. It just felt pure. And it felt real. And as time went on, of course, then they added gloves and other things to it. And even though I still loved it and it was very competitive and it was awesome, I never forgot the purity of the bare knuckle, because with the submissions, you were able to do so many different things with submissions and not having that glove on there. But the biggest thing was that it made guys who were big time punchers to be more accurate with their striking without throwing wild punches and landing in the side of the head or the top of the head and getting away with that because they had a padded glove on their hand or an MMA glove on their hand and their hands were wrapped. You were able to get away with missing those punches and hitting somebody in the head. But bare knuckle, even back in the beginning days where guys were hurting their hands because they weren't striking properly. They were just winging punches so anybody could get lucky and knock somebody out. And it just took away the purity of that submissions. It took away the purity of striking, the professionalism of it. And I never forgot that, the realism of that bare knuckle and the reality of it. And I always told myself if I ever had that chance, I wanted to go back to that. I want to try to bring back some sort of remnants of that. And as it is, we sit right now today, it seems like the only thing we can do now that's even close to that is the bare knuckle boxing, bare knuckle fighting. So that's what we're doing because, again, like I said in the beginning, it was just so pure and so real. And now I get a chance to go back to that and have other young fighters come in and actually experience what I experienced and how the realism of it is so much adrenaline. It's just a great feeling to know you're going to go in there and you're going to fight with God-given talent and not, whether or not your glove's big enough to block a punch or to throw a punch. That it's literally what God gave you.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the design of the bare knuckle boxing. So it's in a pit, right? What made you decide to make it a pit versus, let's say, a ring or a cage, etc.?
Well, I think the first idea, there's many thoughts that came into it, but the real idea was to have an experience with the fans. Because when they're always sitting and they get those front row seats and they pay $1,500 or $6,000 for that golden circle, a lot of times they're disappointed because they couldn't see. There was either the fence in the way or a pole in the way or the ropes, or they just didn't have a good visual because there's always something in the way. And I thought to myself, if we could develop a fighting style and system in an arena, an area where when someone sits in the front row, they're literally in the fight. Like they feel like they're there. And that way, that when they spend that money on those tickets that are in the front row, that they're sitting there, that it is special. It's something that they feel like, wow, I'm so close to this. I can feel those punches. And I felt like not having a barrier in front of those few of those front rows that they're literally sitting right on top of the action and that there's nothing in their way to impede their vision. And that's, to me, is the main reason why I did it. But the other two was like when I started getting a little bit of pushback on not having fences or the ropes, it always came back to the same thing. And it was like, well, how are you going to keep them in the middle? And I kept thinking to myself, well, you know, they've got collegiate wrestling, and these guys are pushing on each other. They're trying to throw each other, suplex each other, shoot on each other, and they always find ways to stay in the middle. And if they don't, they get penalized. And I thought to myself, why is it that you've got to have a fence and ropes to keep people in the middle to fight? I said, if you're a fighter, mentality shouldn't be about having to force you to stay in the middle to fight. It literally should be about you finding ways to knock the guy out or submit the guy, and that's attacking the guy. And I felt like it would take away the guys that are in a fight where they may get into trouble or where they may start getting a little bit tired and they use the ropes or the fence to rest. I think it would take away that. It makes the action faster. There's nowhere to hide or nowhere to run to rest or to take time off. You can't have something like a glove, in my opinion, that makes you good or even better than you should be. So taking away that, it's also the same thing when you got about ropes and fences too. If you're not ready to fight, then you should not be able to have something that's going to help you be able to stay in the fight longer by laying on a rope or grabbing the rope or being on the fence to be able to rest against it, push somebody into it because you can't fight in a space, so you crowd them and shove them into the fence. This takes that out. It makes both guys have to fight and not be able to take any time off from that fight.
Makes sense. And since we're talking about how it's very intense, it's in the center, it's go, 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 let's talk about health. Because I think a lot of people are wondering, is bare knuckle boxing safer? Is it less safe? What is your opinion on that when it comes to injuries and damage to the brain and stuff like that?
Well, it's not my opinion. It's actual medical facts. And they've been studying since the mixed martial arts and the no holds barred has come in. There's been a lot of studies on it and people trying to figure out whether it's going to be safe or not. And what they found out is the same thing when people are trying to prove a fact and that fact isn't true. They always come back around to saying, well, okay, now I believe this because I've done all these searches to prove something wrong, and I end up proving it right. And I think that's what happened with no holds barred in MMA, mixed martial arts, was that they were trying to prove it was unsafe and then figured out, well, wait a minute. Actually, it's not. It's, they're not having to stand up and take punishment for 15 rounds or 12 rounds. And so that's what exactly happened. And then when you started looking at the actual bare knuckle type of it, there's been a lot of studies on that because now you talk about putting a 4-ounce glove on a hand and then being able to still wrap the hand. Now you have a rock on the hand. And now I can literally go into each and every round and throw what punches wherever I want, whether they're in the side of the head, the forehead, the back of the head. I can hit you and not hurt my hand. And therefore, I'm able to land a whole lot more punches because now I have a much, much bigger surface to hit, as opposed to if you were to take that glove off, take the wraps off, take the tape off, and now you got a bare hand. Now that punching surface becomes much smaller because now you got to hit the nose to the chin to the cheekbone. And that is a square inch. It's not very big. And then you're moving, which makes it even harder. And so they're literally figuring out that with bare knuckle, and if you're fighting bare knuckle, you are not allowed to go, I mean, you can, but they're figuring out it's not going to do well for you to throw hard punches. Mm-hmm. Because if you do and you miss, which the percentages of you missing are very high, you're going to damage your hand. And therefore, you're not going to be able to finish the fight. And if you do happen to finish the fight, you're going to be 6 months to a month off because you've got a broken hand. So there's a lot of science to it, and I believe that it makes bare knuckle fighters have to be much more accurate with their striking than you would if you were to put a glove on.
Interesting. So besides being more strategic and being more accurate, do bare knuckle fighters do any kind of like knuckle conditioning or hand conditioning?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like rolling a bottle over your shin bones or kicking a pole. I don't think that's the case. I literally think it's basically your hand is solid or it's not solid. And I think there is getting some use to it, like punching it, and your hand hurts to a point. I think the hurting part is not the scary part. It's the part where you understand the hurting part where it's bruising or the hurting part where it's broken. That's the thing where you have to figure out as you're fighting and you get more experience. The hurting part's fine because that'll heal up and go away. But the hurting part where it's broke, you don't want to keep punching and hitting with that because then you're going to have a long-term damage and your career could be over really quick. So I think it's just being experienced enough and getting the education in the ring to understand, hitting somebody in the head of it being broke or not broke. It's just hurt, you're okay. Yeah, there's really no such thing, in my opinion, as toughening up a bone. I think it's smart just to know that, hey, listen, when you're in a bare knuckle fight, you got to hit the soft tissue and don't go swinging for the fences until you get them hurt.
Yeah, makes sense. A viewer asked a really good question, which is, a lot of people, they have this jab hand out. How do you prevent eye pokes? Even in MMA, there's certain fighters, I'm not going to name them, who are really good at eye poking accidentally, right? So how do you prevent fighters from accidentally eye poking?
Well, I think there's got to be a strict rule, and that's where we are with our league. And we enforced it on the first one, and we didn't have any. If you're in a bare knuckle fight and there's no grappling, why are your hands open?
Mm-hmm.
They should not be open. If you're fighting in bare knuckle, your hands are not allowed to be open. And that's why when we do ours, that we don't let them grab. There's no clinching. There's no grabbing. If you're in a clinch and you grab them, you're going to be warned because this is stand-up fighting, bare knuckle fighting. Therefore, opening your hands and grabbing somebody isn't bare knuckle fighting. So we've enforced that and we'll continue to keep enforcing that your hands will stay closed at all times. So when you get into a clinch, we don't allow them to grab or to do any of that. Hands stay closed. Therefore, there won't be any eye gouging because I believe that opens up a whole different can of problems when you're literally letting guys grab and punch and hold and punch because it's so easy to get a finger in somebody's eye because your hands are opening. So we eliminate that right from the beginning with the way our rules are. Your hands don't open up because there's no reason for them to open.
Mm-hmm. And that actually segues into a perfect next question, was this. So it sounds like right now it'll just be closed fist. You're not looking to implement clinches or throws or anything, or even bare knuckle MMA in the near future?
No, right now we're looking to launch this, get it off the ground, get it going. And the world's changing all the time. Right now I think bare knuckle fighting is what's exciting right now. I think it's the new thing. But it's going to take someone like Valor BK to professionalize it, make it classy. And I think the way that we have ours set up and the rules that we have and the pit that we have, we'll be able to bring it to another level and we'll be able to bring it to the mainstream audience.
I see. Let's talk a little bit about sort of finding legal acceptance. Was it hard to launch a bare knuckle league or was it very easy?
No, it wasn't easy because it's the same thing because I've been a part of this, so I know how it works. Mm-hmm. Back in the day when it was no holds barred and then it was MMA and then the different states closing them down. And so it's a battle because people are uneducated. It's not because they hate you or because they don't like you. It's because they don't understand it yet. They don't know the education part of it because most people that are telling them something that's on the outside looking in are saying, man, this is too dangerous. People are going to get killed. You can't do this. Well, once the education is out there on what bare knuckle really is and how dangerous it isn't when it comes to closed fists, it's actually the opposite of that. If you put a glove on somebody, it's literally more dangerous to create brain damage with the constant punching to the head than it is when you take the glove off because you're not allowed to throw that many punches because your hands won't allow you to because they're going to hurt. So it's a very scientific medical science that has to be exposed. And the only way we can do that is by doing events and showing people the difference between what we're doing and what they're seeing in the other parts of the world with boxing and the MMA stuff. about how those gloves are literally, allowing guys to throw harder and be able to throw more punches than it is when you're talking about bare knuckle. There's more blood. Visually, it looks worse. But long term, you're not talking about brain damage and not being able to speak 2 words without, stuttering because you've been hit in the head too many times. So the short-term damage, yes, bare knuckle, it's visual, it does look worse, but medically, it isn't, because your brain isn't taking 100 punches per round. Yes, you're going to get cut. Yes, you're going to bleed. Yes, you're going to get a broken nose. Yes, you can break your hand. And yes, you can have certain things that happen right now that look visually bad. But long-term damage on the inside of the body, which is the brain, isn't taking as much damage. And I think over time, people will see that and will be able to get this thing going just like we did in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, that's really great points. Ken, let's talk about the first event you did. Tell me about the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions when you were setting up and then when the event actually happened.
Yeah, I've done events before on smaller scales. This one was bigger because it felt like everything was riding on it. I had kind of stepped away from fighting. I was going to really go into this direction. It was something I was going to take off and do. This was something I was going to do for a career. I wanted to give other people that experience, the excitement of what I felt in bare knuckle, and I was excited about doing that. And it was new. In my opinion, it was new to be able to get people to see what I see and to enjoy what I enjoyed, fan-wise, and not just the fighters. And so as we were putting it together, a lot of stuff happened, man. I mean, a lot of stuff. And we were behind the 8 ball trying to get things fixed. And then we actually get the pit, and we were building this pit, right? It's never been done. And the idea that I had was that I wanted it to be visually exciting for the fans. I wanted the fighters to be visually excited by when they looked at it, like I did when I first saw the octagon. It was just wow. And I wanted the same effect with this pit. I wanted fighters to go, wow, like this is gladiator days. Like this is awesome. And so by building the pit and visually seeing the diagrams and everything, I was excited about it. But to actually see the pieces go together, and we actually filmed it as we were putting it together. So one of these days we'll show that. But some of the things didn't fit right. The canvas wasn't sent with the truck. So Richard Goodman and Todd Middendorf, who work with us, we're just like freaking out. How are we going to get this done? And so there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes before our first event, and being the first event, that could have easily derailed us. And man, it was all hands on deck. Everybody got the job done. We had plenty of time before the events kicked off, but there was multiple things like that kind of happened that we were all scrambling, going, no, not now. But everybody jumped to the attention, and when things happened, we didn't panic. We figured out ways to get things done, and literally had the tarp, the canvas thing shipped in. And I remember they paid somebody to actually drive it in to get to us in time. And we finally got the boards to fit because they swelled up a little bit. And so all these things that you're doing for the first time, like the pit, you know something's going to happen, and you try to plan for it. Like we had extra pieces and different things like that if something broke, because you just don't know until you do the fight. And the one thing that we didn't really think about was something not being there. And but we, like I said, we jumped on that, and Richard Goodman and Todd got it done, and it was no issue. But the excitement of the fight, especially when the fight started to go, the one thing in my head was like, man, I hope nobody gets seriously hurt, like on this first show, right? I'm just thinking, no, nobody seriously get hurt, man. It's just like, just get through this. Let's have some great fights. And because, in any fighting event, anything can happen. People can get hurt. It's a combat sport. These things can happen. And so I remember watching Godbeer, his first one, knocks a dude out cold. I mean, he's literally not moving, and I'm jumping up going, oh, and I'm thinking to myself, that is going to put us over. Like, these people are going to go nuts over this. And then in my mind, I had to take it back. Oh, wait a minute. is he moving? Is he moving? And then so he started moving. And they were like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Like, and then another fight came out, where he comes in there and he fights in the main event, and it has a great fight there. And so it just felt like as we were sitting there, and I was sitting on the side there, I remember thinking to myself, wow, we got something. And I already knew it in my head, because I could already see it. I've been fighting in it. I knew what it would look at, but the pit, all the other things, the rule sets, it had to come together. We had to have guys that wanted to fight and come to fight. And as I was sitting there and as the show was unfolding, I was saying to myself, this is it. People are going to love this. This is the next big thing. And so for me, at the end of the night, and our team, we knew that this was going to be special. And then, of course, unfortunately, COVID hits and, things happen. And so now we have to sit and wait, because we don't want to do this without the fans. We think the fans are important to be a part of the growth and the startup of something special like this.
And a good question to add on to this is, how did you choose the fighters? We talked about finding the fighters that wanted to fight. How did you choose those fighters that took part in event number 1?
Well, that was a little bit out of my realm. I left that up to Richard Goodman, who is, the matchmaker. Todd Middendorf had a little bit of say in it, but those two guys working together put on a tremendous card. I mean, I couldn't have done it. The names that they had on that card and the tournament that we had, they did a great job. And I look forward to our next one, which is we're planning it now, and we're actually looking at venues now. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next, man, because Richard Goodman is, in my opinion, one of the best in the business, along with Todd Middendorf. Those guys really understand the game. They understand the fight game, and they understand the bare knuckle and the stand-up part of it and the rule settings, so that it enforces the guys to fight. And so it's exciting, and I'm excited to see what they come up with next.
And along the lines, suddenly a question popped into my head, which is, the first event, who were the attendees? Who were the audience? Were they boxers? Were they casuals? Were they MMA people? Were they fans of Ken Shamrock? Tell me more about the audience.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture. I think people who knew me were excited to come and see the show that I was going to put on. That caught the attention. That was really what people first looked at, with Ken Shamrock's bare knuckle. And that literally raised the attention. And then we started putting the names out. We didn't put them out right away, but we just marketed Ken Shamrock's bare knuckle, and we got immediate attention. But the attention wasn't pro Ken Shamrock or negative Ken Shamrock. It was kind of like, oh, really? Well, what does that look like? Kind of like, well, what's he going to do? But then when we started putting some of the names on the card, Mo, that was a big name, just having him on there. And it's just the different names that we started putting onto this tournament. All of a sudden it became this cult thing. Like, wow, what is this going to look like? Like the first No Holds Barred, where people were like, bare knuckle? Like, they're going to let him go in and fight bare knuckle, no rules? And this was kind of the same thing, where it's like we were pitching it to him as Ken Shamrock's bare knuckle fighting. And then, of course, we got some of the MMA names put on the card. And then when they started seeing those names, all of a sudden this thing started to take off, started getting coverage everywhere. And then when the fight happened, it lived up and it passed what we thought it was going to do. And again, like I said, when we were setting up for the next one, man, especially with the attention that we got, and with the way that the pit is and the way that we have our rules set, I think it's exciting for fighters to want to come in and fight. And also, not just, when you're looking at Ken Shamrock's bare knuckle, people came from boxing, people came from MMA, people came that was just straight up tough guys wanting to fight. And so for us, it's really fun, because MMA guys are not dominating in the bare knuckle space, and boxers are not dominating in the bare knuckle space. it's literally more of guys who have that mentality of wanting to be tough, whether they're in MMA or boxing, but the toughness that they have in their minds of going in and throwing bare knuckle and not being afraid, because it's a different beast when you take gloves off. There's a different mindset of fighters that come to fight in bare knuckle, because when you get hit with bare knuckle, it's not like you can hit with a jab and a guy just kind of shakes it off. You get hit with a jab and you're going to get cut, or you're going to get your nose broke. So you can't take a jab. You can't stand there and just get warmed up, because whatever hits you, whether it's a jab or a right hand or a hook, and it's bare knuckle, it hurts. It's not going to be something that you can just glaze off and just get warm and take a few of them. You're going to get hurt. So that's the exciting part of this, is that it is a different mentality of fighters that step into the bare knuckle space.
And from my understanding, it's kind of that type of bracket where you beat your person, then you fight the next person, right? That's how it works?
Yeah, it's like you're stepping up, right? So in one night, you're going to be a star. You win the tournament, man, you're well known now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was in the beginning days with the no holds barred.
Yeah.
The guy won the tournament, man, everybody in the world knew you. So that's what we're doing, is we're giving these guys an opportunity to go in there and make a name for themselves in one night.
And do you have a date potentially set yet on the next event, or is it still up in the air? It's just in the planning phase right now.
Yeah, we've got a couple of venues we're talking to right now, and that will depend on what dates we're going to do.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So guys, this is a pretty good stopping point. I think we should bring Ken back as we get closer to the next event. What do you think about that, Ken?
I'd love to, man. It'll be fun, especially as we start lining everything out, and I have more to tell you, and I'll be more excited, of course.
Exactly. And Ken, I wanted to ask one more bonus question. So the first time Fight Commentary Breakdowns viewers saw you on my channel was when we just saw this brief clip of when you were fighting Jonathan Ivor, I believe was his name, and he did that funny barrel roll or whatever. Was that a planned thing he did? Did he just literally spontaneously do that? Tell me about that.
I'm not sure what he was doing. Jonathan is a funny guy, and he's a tough guy. I mean, he'll fight anybody, and he's had many fights. So I'm not sure if he was just hoping that I was going to come forward and he would roll close enough to grab my legs or something. But yeah, the timing of it definitely wasn't good, because I was nowhere near him when he did it. That's why I was a little bit, when I'm standing, I was a little bit stunned, like what? It's like, what's that doing? So I was shocked like everybody else. Like, what was that?
I see. Did you ask him afterwards? What was he doing, or did you guys not get a chance to talk?
No, we never got a chance to talk, but I respect the guy, and he's done a lot for MMA, and he's definitely a guy that's had a whole lot of fights, and so I respect what he's done for his career.
Definitely. Awesome. So guys, Ken Shamrock from Valor Bare Knuckle, of course, from UFC, Bellator, WWF, etc. So Ken, again, thank you so much for joining us on Fight Commentary Breakdowns. I will probably upload this in full and also put piecemeal up on different channels, so you'll probably see this sporadically go up.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, and thank you guys for having me on, and God bless, man. Take care.
Definitely. Keep you posted, and keep me posted too.
All right, man.